திருச்சிற்றம்பலம். புழியர்கோன் வெப்பொழித்த புகழியர்கோன் கடல் போற்றி, ஆழிமிசை கல்மிதப்பில் அணைந்த பிரான் அடி போற்றி, வாழி திரு நாவலூர் வன்றொண்டர் பதம் போற்றி, ஊழிமலி திருவாத ஊரர் திருத்தாள் போற்றி. திருச்சிற்றம்பலம். So today we are continuing our discussion of 7.39 padhigam and the stories of the devotees were mentioned in that. Last time we had covered up to verse number 8. So today we are going to start with verse number 9, and maybe Murthy, you can follow with me.
Yeah.
கடல் சூழ்ந்த உலகு எல்லாம் காக்கின்ற பெருமான் காடவர்கோன் கழற்சிங்கன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் மடல் சூழ்ந்த தார் நம்பி இடங்கழிக்கும் தஞ்சை மன்னவனாம் செருத்துணைதன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன் புடை சூழ்ந்த புலி அதழ் மேல் அரவு ஆட ஆடி பொன்னடிக்கே மனம் வைத்த புகழ்த்துணைக்கும் அடியேன் அடல் சூழ்ந்த வேல் நம்பி கோட்புலிக்கும் அடியேன் ஆரூரன் ஆரூரில் அம்மானுக்கு ஆளே. Good. So like all other songs that we have been seeing in this padhigam, this lists several devotee names, and for each devotee he uses some descriptive phrases, maybe about the place, maybe about the action he did, or some adjective to qualify that devotee. So here we have several devotees. One of them is kazhaRcingan. Next devotee is idangazhi. Next is seruththuNai. Next is pugazhtththunai. Then kOtpuli. So there are only 5 devotees who are mentioned here in this song. So the first devotee is kazhaRcingan. கடல் சூழ்ந்த உலகு எல்லாம் காக்கின்ற பெருமான் காடவர்கோன் கழற்சிங்கன் அடியார்க்கும் அடியேன். So kazhaRcingan is the name of the devotee here, and the phrases that occur before that, கடல் சூழ்ந்த உலகெல்லாம் காக்கின்ற பெருமான் காடவர்கோன், that's all describing or adjectives for kazhaRcingan. So he is the king. He is a Pallava king. Kadavar-kon. Kadavar means Pallava, Kon means king. So Kadavar-kon kazhaRcingan means the Pallava king kazhaRcingan. And then the previous set of phrases, Kadal Sunda Ulagala Kakindra Peruman, means he is the king who is ruling over or protecting this big world. That's a kind of, even though he is a Pallava king, rules over the Pallava kingdom, but when they describe the king and poetry and all that, they generally, what we call as, hyperbole, they just extra, they as if he is ruling the whole world. That's how they describe. So, Kadal Sunda Ulagi Elam Kakindra Peruman. Kadal is sea, Ulagi means world. So, the Kadal Sunda Ulagi, so this entire world that is surrounded by sea, that is the Kadal Sunda Ulagi Elam. And Kakindra Peruman. Kakarada means to protect. I think in Telugu also you probably say, Kapadu, right? To save or to protect. So, Kadal Soornda Ulagi Yalam Kakindra Peruman, the Lord who protects the whole world surrounded by the sea, that Pallava king, kazhaRcinga. Adiyarku Madiyan. I am a servant of devotees of kazhaRcinga. That's the meaning of that first line. And this king, now we have only very limited information in Periya Puranam. He was a Pallava king, and as is the he was a very victorious Pallava king. So he went on, he went on, attacking other kingdoms and conquering the other kingdoms and all that, right? So he went and conquered a lot of kingdoms in the north. And then, but he was also a great Shiva devotee. So he used to visit Shiva temples in various places. And once he was in Tiruvarur, and as you can see, the song was, this padhigam was sung in Tiruvarur, and Tiruvarur is, I would say, is such a major center of Shaivam that I would say it's even older than Chidambaram. So there are other padhigams by Tirunavukarasar where he sings about the greatness of Tiruvarur, and he says, Tiruvarur is the most ancient place in their thinking. So this is the temple is also very big. I may have mentioned it. The temple is like 5 acres in size. It's a huge temple. So there has been historically a center of Shiva worship, and so the kazhaRcinga, he came to visit Tiruvarur temple on a pilgrimage. So he had come to the temple, and he was inside worshipping, and one of his queens, maybe she is the main queen or whatever. The kings have multiple wives, so the queen, she was going around the temple and looking at the different things, and she came across the place where they string the garlands. In all the temples there will be a place where will be a mandapam where there will be women sitting there and making garlands of various sizes for the Lord and all the other deities in the temple. So that's and so she comes across that area, and maybe there were nobody sitting there at the time. Maybe they are all taken a break, or maybe they had gone to the garden to bring more flowers, or maybe they have gone to deliver the flowers to the priests inside the temple. So she happens to find flowers on the floor of that raised platform where they will be stringing the garlands. And so this queen picks up a flower, maybe a very attractive flower. She picked it up and smells it and puts it back on the floor, right? And this action was seen by a devotee who is also mentioned in this song, Tanjai Mannavanam seruththuNai. So he is seen by a seruththuNai, a devotee, and he is highly offended by this action, because the flower that we are going to offer to the Lord, we don't smell it, right? Just like the food that we are going to offer to the Lord, we don't eat it before we offer it, like that. So this is a flower that has to be offered to the Lord, but here is this queen. He doesn't know she is the queen, okay? He just sees a woman, a young woman, attractive woman, but doing this action. This is a apacharam, right? This is something that should not be done. It is a wrong thing. So he wanted to immediately, he gets upset and angry and wild, and he pulls out his sword and grabs hold of her and her head by her hair and all that, and then he cuts off her nose. He says, this nose is the one that smells this flower that is to be offered to the Lord, and that nose will be punished. So he cuts off her nose. And that's obviously, you can imagine, that involves, a lot of pain, and blood is flowing, and she's crying and wailing and all that, right? And when this is happening, the Pallava king, kazhaRcinga, finishes his worship and he is coming out. And he comes across this scene where his wife nose has been chopped off and she is bleeding and crying and wailing and all that, right? So he gets upset. He pulls out his sword and says, hey, who did this to my wife? And then seruththuNai comes forward and tells, sir, this is what happened. She picked up the flower that is to be offered to the Lord and smelled it and put it back, and this is wrong, so I punished her. The king, the Pallava king, is also a great devotee, right? So he says, he feels that, yes, that deed requires punishment. But he says, hey, the punishment you gave is not the appropriate punishment. The hand is the one that picked up the flower first. So the hand should be punished. So he chops off her hand. This is what the king did, the Pallava king. Again, that's all we know about this, right? That he was a great devotee who punished his wife for picking up and smelling the flower. This, again, to us, in the modern day, this may think like, be seen as a very cruel and unjust punishment, but those devotees in their times, in their frame of mind, in their devotional level, they felt that that was right. So that's what you have to see. Now, we are not here to pass judgment on what they did, whether it is right or wrong, but we have to see how devotion, what level of devotion they felt if they were going to do such an action. That's what we have to think about. So that's all we know about kazhaRcinga, that he was a great Pallava king, and he had conquered the regions in the north, and he was a great Shiva devotee. And in Thiruvarur this happened, and this is how he acted when that happened. And it was for his devotion and this action that he gets mentioned in tiruttoṇḍattogai. So that's all we have about kazhaRcinga. Any thoughts or comments you have? If not, we can go to the next devotee here. But before that, it's possible that this queen, right, she did this action. She may have done this action because she's probably not familiar with our traditions and expectations. It's possible that, maybe she, when the kings go and fight wars and capture other kingdoms, and the other kings, often say, hey, marry my daughter and make peace with me, and that kind of thing. They make deals. So maybe she is from a different region. Maybe she may even come from a different religious background. We have no idea. But that's what she did. Okay. Now we go to the next devotee on the list. Madal soornda tar nambi idangazhikkum Tanjai mannavanam seruththuNai adiyarkkum adiyen. So the first devotee is mentioned here is idangazhi. And he's saying, Madal soornda tar nambi idangazhi. Madal means, the petals in a flower. When you have a flower, it has petals, right? So the petals are called madal. And so he is a devotee who is described as Nambi. Nambi means, we have seen, somebody who is a very noble man. And tar means garland. The garland, there are different kinds of garlands people wear. and there is a circular garland, and there is a long string of garland that they wear around their necks. So there are different kinds of garlands. Tar is one such garland. So what this phrase means is that the noble idangazhi who wears garland of flowers, to him I am a slave, I am a devotee. So now who is this idangazhi and what did he do? Tiruttoṇḍattogai doesn't give those details. As you have seen, here's a list of devotees strung into a set of 11 verses, and depending upon the context and the space and poetry meter and rhyme and rhythm and all that, sundarar will use some descriptive phrase. Sometimes he just mentions the name without descriptive phrases. So here that's all we have that in the tiruttoṇḍattogai. But later on, nAyanAr Nambi describes for each devotee, sings one verse describing their name, place, and what service they did, some highlights from their life. And then Periya Puranam, Sacred describes all that into a big story. So idangazhi nAyanAr, he lived in a place called Kodumbalur. Again, some of these names we don't even know today, because these are names that used to be used about 1,000 years ago when Sacred lived. Sacred lived about 1,000 years ago roughly. So the stories and devotees lived long before that, right? So the name of the places change over a period of time, and sometimes the place is no longer known where it is because people have moved on and nobody lives there or whatever. So but here what we have is that the notes says that it is somewhere about let's say 30-40 kilometers from Tiruchirappalli area, south of Tiruchirappalli. And he was a local king. In those days we had this big kings, and then they had smaller kingdoms under their jurisdiction, but with some kind of a local king. In a way, like the way the big countries are ruled today, right? We have the federal government, and then we have the state government, then we have the district level administration, and then we have the local village level administration, right? Like that, in those days they would have had big kings like Chera king or Chola king or Pandya king or Pallava king or whatever, and within their kingdoms there will be local kings who will be under those protection of those bigger kings. So they are like subservient to the bigger kings. So like that there were many smaller kingdoms, and that's how we know that when India became independent, India had more than 500 kingdoms. So here idangazhi was a local king ruling over a small kingdom, and he was a great Shiva devotee. That goes without saying. Everybody who is mentioned in tiruttoṇḍattogai is a great Shiva devotee. And in his local kingdom, maybe in the neighboring village or wherever, there was a Shiva devotee, some other Shiva devotee, and that Shiva devotee was doing his service to other Shiva devotees by doing annadanam. Like, he will feed the other Shiva devotees. We have seen in Periya Puranam, tiruttoṇḍattogai and various nayanmars. So feeding the other devotees is considered a great service. And number of nayanmars have done that kind of a service. And so there was this unnamed devotee who was doing Shiva service by feeding other Shiva devotees. And at some point in time, there was some kind of a shortage, right? We know that periodically famines will come, or maybe wars come, whatever. The supplies get disrupted, so the commodities become in short supply. So price shoots up. Even if you have the money, you can't buy it, or if you don't have money, it is there, but it's so expensive that you can't buy it. That kind of thing. All that happens, right? So So there's a shortage of food grains. So this devotee was trying to get some food grains so that he can feed the other devotees, but he could not find any due to lack of supply or that kind of. So he is trying to figure out how am I going to feed the devotees now? I'm not able to find rice. So he feels that hey, the king has this big storehouse. In his storage he has got a lot of paddy. So maybe I will go steal some paddy from the king's granary and use it for feeding the devotees. I don't know what. He probably didn't feel like going and asking the king. Maybe he thought that the king won't give, or maybe he didn't feel like, whatever. We don't know why he didn't ask the king directly, but he decided to steal it. He wanted to feed the devotees, but he wanted to find rice, and so he decided to steal it from the king's granary. So one night he enters the king's palace area and enters the place where the king has stored the paddy, and he started filling a bag with paddy and carrying it out. At that time, the guards, the royal guards who are keeping watch over throughout the night, they catch hold of him. And next day morning, they produce him in the royal court. And they tell the king, "O king, last night we caught this man. He was stealing from your palace. So we caught him and brought him here." So the king, asks him, "Why did you steal? What happened? Why did you steal? Did you steal? Why did you steal?" Right? And then this Shiva devotee tells the king. The king is Idangazhi. Idangazhi is the local king, right? So he tells Idangazhi nAyanAr, "O king, it is my niyamam, right? I do it I have been doing this service of feeding the devotees for a long time, and now due to shortage of food grains, I am not able to continue my service. So out of desperation, I came and stole paddy from your storehouse." So the king feels so bad that a Shiva devotee had to steal in order to continue his service. So he feels that that as a king he had sort of failed to protect his subjects, and so he releases this devotee and announces. He makes a proclamation, right? In those days, the royal proclamation will be, there will be people who go around the town and beat the drums and make the announcement, right? So he declares a royal proclamation. All devotees can come and take whatever they want from my storehouse. Whether food grains, whether they need help, they all can come and take. So obviously you can imagine, if this devotee could not get food grains, there will be a lot of other people who couldn't get food grains. So all the devotees who needed help came and got help, took whatever they need, right? He didn't even say that, come, I will give you. He didn't want to put it even that way. He says, come and take what you want, what you need. That kind of announcement he made, and he ruled the kingdom in a very just manner. So that is the gist of the story of Idangazhi nAyanAr, a local king who not only pardoned somebody who stole from his royal storehouse, but he also announced that, hey, everybody come take what you need, all devotees. I am a devotee of devotee kind of a person. So that is the story of Idangazhi nAyanAr. that's all we have about him. As I mentioned, as we go into the 8th, 9th, 10th songs, the stories, most of the stories will be very short. So that is the gist of this story. If you have any comments, we can talk, or we can go to the next story. The next one is seruththuNai nAyanAr. Thanjai mannavanam seruththuNaidan adiyarkum adiyen. Thanjai, there is Thanjavur, and the Thanjavur that we know of, right? The Brihadishwara temple, that Thanjavur is different from this Thanjavur that is mentioned in this song. As you know, in those days, even today, right, you will find more than one place with the same name in different parts of the state or different parts of the country. So, like that, the Thanjavur was a common name that is associated with Thanjavur, the current Thanjavur, but it's also a place which is somewhere south, somewhere near Tiruvallur. And so there was either a local chief or he was named seruththuNai, and that seruththuNai nAyanAr is the one who we saw in the earlier story today. So the seruththuNai nAyanAr lived near Tiruvallur in the place called Thanjavur, and he used to come to Tiruvallur temple frequently and worship there. And he was a great Shiva devotee. And one day when he was there in Tiruvallur temple, as he was going around the prakaram, he happened to see this woman who picked up a flower from the mandapam where they string garlands. And then he got upset and he cut off her nose. That is a story that we have seen, the kazhaRcinga story. So that episode involved two people, right? The one who first cut off the nose, and the second was the king who cut off the hand. So in this song, Sundarar mentioned the king first, and then in this line, Thanjai mannavanam seruththuNai, he mentions the other devotee who chopped off the nose. So that's all we know about the seruththuNai nAyanAr, that he was a Shiva devotee who once cut off the Pallava king's wife's nose because she did smell a flower that was intended for the Lord. So that's all we have information in this story. Then we move to the next devotee in this song. Pudai soolnda puli adal mel aravu aada aadi ponnadikke manam vaitha pugazhththuNaikkum adiyen. So here the devotee's name is pugazhtththunai. And what we have in this song is that he is described as Pudai soolnda puli adal mel aravada aadi ponnadikke manam vaitha pugazhtththunai. So the first line, Pudai soolnda puli adal mel aravada aadi, means Shiva, and it says pugazhtththunai was thinking of only Shiva's holy feet. Ponnadi means golden feet or beautiful feet, right? And manam vaitha, he focused his mind on that holy feet. So pugazhtththunai nAyanAr was focused on the holy feet of Shiva, and that Shiva is described in the first line. Pudai soolnda puli adal mel aravada aadi. So Shiva is wearing a tiger skin, and around the tiger skin he is wearing a snake as his belt, and wearing this he is dancing. So that's what is described there. The Shiva who dances and wears a tiger skin around which he wears a snake. That's what is the description is. Pudai soolnda puli adal. Puli means tiger, adal means skin. Pudai soolnda means surrounding himself or encircling himself, right? So around his waist. So wearing a tiger skin around his waist, and on top of that, puli adal mel, on top of the tiger skin, aravu aada aadi. Aravu means snake, Ada means to sway, Adi means one who dances. So Shiva is wearing a tiger skin on which he is wearing a snake, and he is dancing. And as Shiva is dancing, the snake is also swaying, right? The snake's head is swaying as Shiva is dancing. So that's how he's saying. The Shiva who wears tiger skin and a snake around with his waist, and he dances, causing the snake to sway. And that Shiva's holy feet, which is what this pugazhththuNai was always thinking about. That pugazhtthhuNai, to him, I am a servant. That's how Sundarar sings this line. Now, we can think about who pugazhtthhuNai nAyanAr was. pugazhtthhuNai nAyanAr was a temple priest. Now, the place is known as Arisirkarai Puttur. Arisil is a branch that runs off from the Kaveri river, right? So in the Kaveri river, as it comes down the plains and nears the delta area, it starts branching off into many smaller rivers, and then they all go and merge in the sea, right? So one of the branches rivers that comes off Kaveri is called Arisil, and that on the banks of that Arisil is a place called Puttur. As I was mentioning, Puttur, there are many towns or villages called Puttur. So in order to qualify which Puttur he is referring to, this place is called the Puttur on the banks of Arisil river. Like in Germany, you probably have these kind of places, right? Frankfurt or other places, and they will always say on Rhine or whatever other river, right? Like that, you qualify the name of qualify the place by saying that it is on the banks of this river. So that's what that Arisirkarai Puttur is. And in that Arisirkarai Puttur was this Brahmana, a temple priest. His name was pugazhtthhuNai, and he was a ardent devotee. You know, there are many priests, but this particular priest was a extraordinarily devoted priest, and he was always thinking of Shiva and his holy feet, and he was doing his daily service, right? Every day in the morning, afternoon, evening, whatever the period times are, he will go and do the worship and puja and all that. And he has been doing it for a long time. And once there was this, again, a famine occurs, and there is shortage of food. And as we know, when famine occurs, there's shortage of food, and so when there is shortage, we always end up with having skyrocketing prices, right? So limited quantity is available, and that is expensive. And so this pugazhtthhuNai nAyanAr couldn't afford to buy food, so he had no food grains in his stock. He couldn't buy it either because it's not available or not, too expensive for him to buy. So obviously, you know, he's surviving. Somehow he's managing to survive, right? You know, probably went hungry for a couple of days, but he was still doing the daily worship in the temple. And every day he will go to the temple and do abhishekam, aradhana, and all that he will do. But so this time he was having, you know, very hungry, and he was carrying a pot of water. Now the pot means, you know, today in temples we use metal vessels, right? Metal pots. They use small metal kalasams or containers to do abhishekam. But in his case, he probably was carrying in those days it was mud pots were more commonly used everywhere, and he probably was carrying a mud pot of water, and he was doing abhishekam on the Shivalingam. And as he was doing abhishekam, you know, he grew very weak and tired, and he sort of lost balance. He dropped the pot on Shivalingam, and he fell down and he fainted. And then in his dream, Shiva appears. He says, "O pugazhtththunai, don't worry. From now on, till this famine is gone, we will give you 1 gold coin every day." So pugazhtththunai nAyanAr wakes up and finds a gold coin on the base of the Shivalingam. He was overjoyed because Shiva's grace. He takes it, and once you have the gold coin, you can buy food, because once you have gold, you can afford to buy, because even if it is in short supply, only those who have the money can buy the food. Others can't buy the food, right? So he has, Shiva has given him the money, so he could afford to buy the food. So from that day onwards, every day he would find a gold coin at the Shivalingam's base. So this went on for the duration of the famine period, right? Whether it was 2 months, whether it was 6 months, we don't know, because the famine, once it comes, then the next crop cycle has to occur, and then only then they have all this food, right? So whatever is the famine period, during that period he was getting a gold coin every day. So that was the special nature of pugazhtththunai nAyanAr, that who continued his service even when he was extremely hungry, to the extent that he fainted and fell on the floor. That level of hunger, and he still maintained his devotion. He didn't falter in his devotion, and with that devotion, Shiva was pleased, and he was giving him daily bata. We call it padhigam. Kase means coin, gold, right? Money. And padi means, in this case, it means daily allowance. So survive, daily allowance to survive. So Shiva gave him padhigam. We have seen this padhigam story, similar one, in Sambandar and Tirunavukarasar lives, right? When Tirunjana Sambandar and Tirunavukarasar were staying together at the same time in Tiruvizhimalai, there was a period of famine, and people were going hungry, and Shiva gives both of them gold coins every day. And so it is similar to that in nature, except that here it is for helping this one devotee. And sundarar not only mentions this here, when sundarar went on his pilgrimages, right? He goes to this place, Arisilkare Puttur, which I said, it's about maybe about 10 kilometers from Kumbakonam. He goes to there. When he went to that temple, Sundarar is singing padhigam in the temple, and in one song he describes this story and praises the Lord as the old Lord who gave daily bata to pugazhtththunai nAyanAr. He mentions that whole story in his song. This is in 7th Tirumurai, 9th padhigam, 6th song. I will just mention the song here so that you get an idea. Agattadime seyyum andaṇan than arisil punal kondu vandu aattugindraan migat tarvu eidi kudattayum num mudimel vilithittu nadungudalum வகுத்து அவனுக்கு நித்தல் படியும் வரும் என்று ஒரு காசினை நின்ற நன்றி புகழ்த்துணை கை புகச் செய்து உகந்தீர் பொழிலார் திருப்புத்தூர் புனித நீரே. So this is 7.9.6 song. Sundarar sings the whole story in the particular song later. So that is the greatness of pugazhtththunai nAyanAr, that Shiva gave him daily coin during the famine period, and not only that, Sundarar sings one full song praising pugazhtththunai nAyanAr's service in a padhigam. So that is how pugazhtththunai nAyanAr is so special. With that, we will go to the next story. Adal soornda vel nambi kOtpulikkum adiyeen. kOtpuli is a name of the nAyanAr, and is described as adal soornda vel nambi. We have seen nambi is nobleman, vel we have seen is a weapon, in the weapon that Subramanian is holding in his hand, that is vel. And adal soornda vel, adal means victory. So kOtpuli is described as the nobleman with a victorious vel, with the victorious spear, right? So that is what we have in tiruttoṇḍattogai. Now if you go look at the story in Periya Puranam, so this kOtpuli nAyanAr lived in a place called Naṭiyathankudi. Naṭiyathankudi is maybe 15-20 kilometers from Tiruvallur. It's south of Tiruvallur, and he was what you can call a very great warrior as well, and that's a great Shiva devotee. Now once the king wanted to go north and fight battles with other kings and subjugate them, whatever, right? So he calls his army, calls people to come and join his expedition to the north. So he calls the people, and kOtpuli nAyanAr was also one of the what you can call a major warrior who joins the army. So when they go on this expedition, right, they go and it may take many months. They go and they go on this thing, and they go to this kingdom, that kingdom. So it may be 4 months, 6 months before they come back. Right? We don't know how long it takes, because it takes time to go to the other kingdoms, because in those days you had to go on foot and horseback and all that, right? So it takes time, and then battles have to be planned, fought, and captured, or all that takes time. So kOtpuli nAyanAr was going to go on to this thing, and he said he wanted to make sure that Shiva's service is not interrupted. He used to offer rice, let's say, to the local temple for every day for Naivedyam. So, and also to feed the devotees, right? I don't know what the services he were doing. Let's say, so he's established, he had a lot of grain. He was a fairly well-to-do person. So he had created a store of paddy, and told all his family members, right? Parents, wife, brothers, sisters, uncles, everybody, right? He told all of them, hey, I have stored this much rice, the paddy, right? In those days, the storage is always as paddy, not as rice. So he has stored the paddy, and he said, I have saved this much of paddy, and this is to be used only for the Shiva service. This is not for your use. Okay? Whatever paddy you have elsewhere, that is for your use, but this is for Shiva's use only. You should not touch it. This is, he says, this is, I declare in the name of the Lord, you should not touch it. And after announcing it to all his relatives, he goes to the king's army, and he joins the king's army, and they go on to the north to fight battles and all that. So let's say a couple of months have gone by, and then famine strikes. Whatever is the harvest, that should have got harvest, but maybe there was a flood or whatever, maybe pests, whatever happens. So the harvest is gone, right? There's no more food grains in this cycle. So all his family members, right? They're all trying to see, how are we going to survive the next couple of months or 3 months before we can raise another crop cycle. So they say, okay, we don't have any food now, but we have this big store of paddy that kOtpuli has left behind. Let us raid that. Let's use paddy from that, and when we next cycle of crops come back, when the famine goes, we can replenish that. It's like let's taking a loan. Let us borrow the paddy from the store that kOtpuli has left behind for, and so they all take that paddy and they share the paddy and they all use it to survive. Then a few months goes by. kOtpuli was victorious in the battles for the king, and he comes back, and the king gives him a lot of gifts. You can imagine, how if you are a victorious general, how much gifts a king will shower on you. So it brings back with a lot of wealth. Comes back to Natiyathankudi. And as he entered Natiyathankudi, all the town people, village people there welcome him, and his family members are all welcoming him, and then he goes home. And then when he's home, he hears about what happened, that all his family members raided the paddy that he had saved for Shiva's worship, and they all had used it to eat and survive. And he was very, very upset. I specifically told these people not to touch this, and they all disrespected my command, and they did Shiva aparadam by taking what I have said is for Shiva, but they have eaten themselves. I should punish them. So he decides that he announces to all his relatives, all the people who had eaten this paddy. He says, hey, I have come back with a lot of gifts, so tomorrow we will have a grand feast in my place. All of you come. So all his brother, uncle, they all come to his house for enjoying the feast, and they were hoping to get some gifts from kOtpuli. And as soon as everybody was inside and all that, and kOtpuli orders his servants, lock all the doors. They lock all the exit doors, and kOtpuli takes out his sword and kills all of them. He says, no, I told you not to touch this, and you did this, so I shall punish you. And he kills all his relatives, his parents, his wife, his children, his uncles, aunts, whoever was there, right? He kills all of them. And then there was only one lone survivor, maybe a 3-month-old baby that was on the ground somewhere. And kOtpuli was about to kill that, and one of the servants pleads with him, sir, don't kill that baby, that didn't eat this rice. But then kOtpuli was replies, hey, it may not have eaten this rice, but it drank the milk of the mother who ate this rice. With that, he picks up the child, throws it up, and cuts it. And when this happened, Shiva appears, blesses him, and tells them that all the relatives who were killed by him, they are also removed of their sins because of they were got killed by him. So Shiva gives all the devotees and kOtpuli mukti. So he takes them to Shivalokam. So that is the story of kOtpuli nAyanAr. So it is a very difficult story in some sense, because we see that he, in a desperate situation, his family members ate the paddy, but he still feels that they need to be punished. We saw in this verse, it started with a kazhaRcinga who chopped off the hand of his wife, who picked up and smelled the flower, and we find in the final one kOtpuli who kills his family members because they ate the rice and paddy that he had left behind for Shiva's service. So with that, we come to the end of this verse. Aruran Aruril Ammanukale. I, Aruran, name of Sundarar, I, Sundarar, is a servant of Swami of Tiruvarur. That is the 9th verse, and the story is in the 9th verse. Any thoughts, comments? If you want, we can talk. If not, we will meet next time and continue the 10th verse. Tiruchitrambalam.